Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to crisis management, resilience, business continuity, emergency management, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. As you can see by the screen, it's that time again. I want to welcome back for our June 2025 update, Regina Phelps. Regina, welcome back.
Alex, as always, it's a great pleasure, and it seems like we often speak on days where there's a lot going on.
Oh, there's nothing going on in the world right now. It's nice and peaceful. Bunnies and rainbows.
Oh, someday I hope before we both drop dead, we'll be talking about bunnies and rainbows.
Yeah, they'll be rabid and you'll still at that.
Exactly, exactly. Oh gosh.
So
Well,
what's
when you
on your
think
mind?
about, yeah, I know. When you think about where we are today, of course, today is I don't know when this is going to be airing, but this is a kind of a big day as far as world news is concerned because the United States was suffering an attack from Iran in Qatar, at one of the air bases there, based on the attack we did yesterday on their nuclear compounds. And so there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of things to be prepared for when we think about the unexpected, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because if you live in that area, you're also now in the line of fire,
Right.
potentially in the line of fire, because you
Right.
had Israel do the same thing,
Hmm.
firing as well. So now we've got three parties involved.
Yeah, a little bit of instability, a little bit of not knowing what's going to happen next. And certainly in our business, that is what we do. But the stakes seem to be increasingly higher and higher as every day seems to go by lately.
Yes. And one of the things that I've noticed is people in my city where I live in Ontario, there are a lot of immigrant families,
Mm,
and it seems they're not going out as much right now.
hmm
I because I do know an area, there's a bunch of people there, but say hi in the morning when I'm walking the dog and things like that. I'm not seeing them right now.
hmm
I have a feeling it's because they're from, I don't know exactly where they're from, so this is me just guessing, but they're from the Middle East, and I think they're a little nervous about getting pushback from other communities because of what's going on over there now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even though the fighting and the missiles are in Iran, Israel, Lebanon, and Qatar today, that over here people are starting to feel that and
Yeah.
get nervous themselves about it.
Yeah. The uncertainty, I think, is really um, prevalent all over, certainly the United States. And I live in California, which of course has a huge immigrant population, and the activities that have been going on in LA where there's still 4,000 National Guard doing nothing and 700 Marines doing nothing in Los Angeles, and just a lot of uncertainty and really anxiety
Mhm.
across the country. And I think when we were sort of discussing before in our pre-show chit chat about what we're going to talk about, to me, this really rolls around in the thing that we talk about a lot, but today even is more heightened. And that is the issue of really this disruptions that we experience in our businesses and how we are basically people that are skilled in disruption, but also the instability of what's happening around the world. And that ties to, oh gosh, all the things that we normally focus on. But today, I think, besides for looking at the things that we would normally look at, which are things like supply chain stuff, I think that it's really stopping to think about our own level of personal preparedness, our own level of safety, and just kind of reflecting on how can we better promote our work in an environment where it's becoming a little chilling, I think. Some of my clients are really having cutbacks. They're doing layoffs. They're also ordering less consulting as the economy is sort of felt to be on the precipice, I guess I would say.
Yeah, it does feel like at a drop of a hat, anything could happen because it's
Right.
not, uncertainty is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
because as you're going forward, walking in a forest, you're uncertain of where things are and where you're going sometimes. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
However, right now, it's because change is happening or the impacts of events are happening daily.
Mm-hmm.
The uncertainty is, I don't know what's going to happen when I wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
where things
Right.
are. You
Right.
don't even have even the slightest little bit of outlook to
Mm-hmm.
try and plan for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that that's an important thing for us to really sort of think about in the course of our time together today. And I think also when you look at our work, people will often look to us too, because of the kind of work that we do. And this goes back to how we can promote people's sense of well-being and also their sense of preparedness and readiness. Because I think that that's also something else that we need to be thinking about.
Mhm.
Our own level of readiness, but frankly, um, the level of readiness for those people that work with us. And you see that, of course, when there are natural disasters and maybe people don't have much in the way of preparedness and they're not able to come to work or they're not able to do their jobs because of the impacts to their homes or all of those types of things, which you see in tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes and all of that. But also, I think now when I think about what does this really mean? And so, you can sort of riff on this emerging war that we're seeing in the Middle East and think about things such as increased cyber attacks,
Mm.
right? And when we think of increased cyber attacks, it's not just cyber attacks that might be targeting a particular business, but then I also think about those things such as persistent actors, which when we go back and look at the Salt Typhoon event that happened last year, where there are Chinese, and the Chinese military hacking group literally hacked into all of the telecommunications companies in the United States. And they think they've kicked them out, but they don't know. And there's been lots of conversations about the same thing happening to the electrical grid. So I think we could be sitting here in the United States or in Canada in your case and thinking like, okay, whatever's going on is way over there. But in reality, we don't really know that because of this issue of cyber attacks, in particular, the possibility of persistent actors, and also just the number of attacks that your company may have on any given day that could be literally being promoted by this event that's happening around the world.
And I still think some organizations think we're not a mission critical industry or we're not providing life services or life safety products or services. So we're immune to that. And no, it doesn't matter.
Right.
They're throwing whatever they can against the wall. Something's going to stick, and it
Hmm.
could be sticking to your organization.
Hmm.
And you don't have to be the one that has a high profile or multi-billion dollar global conglomerate. You
Right.
can be a small 100-person organization
Hmm.
uh, and still be hacked and maybe lose your livelihood, lose your business.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'm actually very concerned about those issues related to our ability to continue to operate in the current environment with a lot of threats that we, as you just said, may not be taking seriously because we're thinking it would happen to somebody else. And I do want to circle back to things like cyber readiness, cyber preparedness. And this is where I would hope that people in our profession are really counseling their management to be thinking about really looking at increased phishing attacks, look at things that where might be you might have social engineering going on where people again are trying to get into your systems and they might be befriending somebody. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to be hacked in a variety of different ways. And so I think this is a time of readiness that people should be thinking about. And certainly the cyber event, but also how many times have you and I talked about supply chains since 2020, right?
Oh my goodness.
Right. I mean, this feels like just one more of those examples, right? And when we think about supply chains, also think about the issue related to employees. And this goes back to immigration here in the United States. And when you look at the sheer number of people that are working, just because they're in your business doesn't necessarily mean that they're in this country in the United States legally. They could be janitors. They could be doing people that are doing in your shipping and receiving places. There could be all kinds of people that might be working in your business directly or supporting you peripherally. You
Hmm.
know, janitors, people who do catering for you, people who are doing deliveries for you, all of those people could be potentially at risk. And we're seeing already here in the States, where I live, a huge Hispanic population, that many people are just not going to work. And what does that mean for your business?
Yeah. Well, I read an article a few days ago, and I wish I could remember where it was, but it was on one of the major news sites, so CNN, MSNBC, ABC, or up here CBC. I wish I
Hmm.
could remember which one, but it struck me what the a farmer said in the first couple of paragraphs. He said, because of what's going on and what you just brought forward, a lot of people now that he used to employ on his farms aren't showing up.
Right.
So he's hiring non-immigrant workers to come in,
And
and
how is
they're
that going?
lasting. He said they're lasting like half a day, going, how can anyone do this job? And they're
Right.
leaving.
Right.
He goes, so my farm's suffering. He goes, I've got all this stuff sitting here
Hmm.
and nobody to work it.
Hmm. And people may say, well, gee, I don't work for a farm, but who cares? Oh, but we all eat, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's very funny. When I was a kid, I grew up in the Central Valley of California. My parents owned a big steakhouse, and so we were, I know, comfortably well off. But my family had a strong feeling that I needed to understand what the privilege was of being, in a comfortable position. So when I was 14, the first thing that my dad did is he took me down to a farm labor camp, which people were all crammed in horrible housing. And he said to me, "You know what you're going to do tomorrow, Regina? You're going to start picking fruit." So, I did it for 3 years. I either packed fruit in a packing plant or I picked fruit. And I will tell you, at 14, I was the only white kid in that environment. And what I learned straight away was how incredibly important those people are, how incredibly valuable they are to our society, and how frankly kind and generous and wonderful they were. And that when I would be like exhausted in a little heap, they'd come over and give me some water, kind of stroke my head. And then I would, get my stuff together and I'd get back up and do it again. But to me, it was the greatest lesson my parents ever gave me that just because you may never do that again in your life or you'll never have to, you need to understand the people that do that work and how hard it is. So your comment about the farmer, totally get that.
Yep. Every time I go to a restaurant, I look around and see what's going on because that's where I started. I started clearing tables and washing dishes and things like that. I know what it's like to have some of those, what would you call them? Thankless jobs, as people call them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I feel for a server or someone trying to manage the door or the bartender who's got so many drink orders and crazy people sitting there drinking.
Right.
And I feel for them and I understand. And I always turn around saying, don't worry about me. I used to do this. I know exactly what's going on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and what's happening, and stay calm, and it puts them at ease, and it's like, I know what you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
and I know this is not easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's an important work experience, and I hope many people get that when they're young. And if you have kids, that you give it to them when they're young.
Yeah.
I think it teaches you a life lesson that's really valuable, not only in just your personal sense of being, but also when you're out in the world and how you're treating other people, right? Who are
Mhm.
in those jobs, just as you described.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
I think when I look at where we are right now in this sort of unknowingness around the world is that I think we as a profession need to stop and think about what our risks really are, what our preparedness level is, and I think we need to use this as an opportunity to really sell that to our employers and to our businesses. And again, looking at the value of what we provide. So I think maybe if we would sort of spend our time today really sort of circling the wagon around those things about really getting people to broaden their vision about what's happening, understanding that whatever's going on across the world could have a real significant impact on every single person and that's in within earshot of this show.
Hmm.
What we need to be doing as a profession to help increase readiness, preparedness, and really be hyper vigilant.
Well, I know you've got some ideas, so why don't we start there? What are some of the things we should do or
Mhm.
start doing, the easy things that we could do?
Mhm. So, what I'm inclined to think, first of all, is personal preparedness. So, and this is really important, not just for what we're talking about today, which is some global event, but this also is pertinent for earthquakes, fires, electrical outages, tornadoes, hurricanes, blah, 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 blah. So, I think it's always important for those of us in our field to ask the question, am I really ready if there was a major event that had a major disruption in my area? Do I have what I need at home in order to survive for a series of several days? Ideally, a week, the best 2 weeks. And
Mhm.
so, that means stopping to think about the basics. So, what are the basics that you need, Alex? What do you need to survive daily?
Well, I'll go through my little kit that I
Oh,
have here.
good.
Oh, actually, it's not a little kit, it's a big
Yeah, I
two
was going to say it's
big
probably
containers.
pretty big.
Yeah. No, excuse me. There's water there. There is food packets,
Hmm.
toilet paper, tissues, first aid kit,
Hmm.
flashlights, extra
Hmm.
batteries, small tea light candles as well. What other?
Matches?
Sorry.
Matches?
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess I should need those if I want to light those
Those
candles.
candles might need them, yeah?
Matches. There are some. I can't remember their real name, but those silver
Oh,
uh,
yeah, that's
things,
Mylar blankets.
mylar blankets. Yeah, have some of those as well. I have tubs of uh, dehydrated food as well,
Hmm.
so that in case something happens, well, then I've already got something that's ready, or just
Hmm.
add water to, and it's you know hopefully tastes good. I'm
Hmm.
gonna try one, just see what it's like.
Well,
I may or may
the
not like it.
hungrier you get, you'll get less desperate.
Well, if there's no power and there's no food and everything in the fridge is gone,
Right,
be hungry enough to have one, that's for sure.
right. Absolutely.
So those are the key things, and I swap out some of that stuff every so often, just so the water stay fresh, and I use the batteries so they're always fresh,
Hmm.
things
Hmm.
like that. So I continually move that kind of stuff around, including the first aid kit, and everything is packed neatly with a an envelope on top telling me exactly what's in the box.
Good. Oh, you're organized.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think I did it because of the pandemic. That's
Wow.
just before the
Great.
pandemic, I started putting some of that together.
That's
And I guess
great.
it just over the years have just made it a little bit more refined, and all I have to do is pick them up and off I go.
That's great. I have all of that, but I also have a couple of other things. I always have at least $100 in cash.
Mm,
Because cash is important and the bill should be small. So, because if there's no power, you're not going to be able to use a credit card or a bank card. So, cash is important and ideally in small bills because people may not be able to break change. So, you want to have that. The other thing is, I always have my passport and important documents like that at the ready. I don't have them where my go bag is or my go box is, but I have make sure that I have those readily available and insurance related cards as well. So anything that's about identity and documentation. And the last thing that I've done, which I've done for many years, is I have a video of my entire contents of my house. I've never made an inventory of my house because it just seems like impossible to me. But what I've done is after talking to a bunch of insurance folks, they say, the best things you can do, because when they say if your house was to be destroyed, let's say, and they're going to ask you, well, give us a list of your contents. Okay, now sit down, Alex, and start writing that out.
yeah, I'll be here for a while.
Right. And then you don't remember a lot of things, right?
Hmm.
So, one of the best things somebody ever said to me is what you should do is basically take a video. So grab your phone, and essentially hit the video button, open drawers, scan every single wall, open every drawer, open every cabinet, look in your closet, spread things out so you see it. And then you have that literally for every single room. And then if you were ever to lose any of the contents in your home, you actually not only have a pretty good, I mean, it's not a complete inventory, but it's certainly better than nothing. And you actually have the document, the video, the visual image of the things that you actually did own.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that.
It's actually really helpful. And it's better than trying to say you're going to make a list of your contents because, you might get through a cabinet or two, but you're probably going to stop.
Yeah, there's no way I would have a complete list of everything. It would be so long.
Yeah.
I'd rather take a video of all the books rather than look
Right.
at each and every one of them. Oh my God.
Exactly. Exactly. And think of art on your walls. Think of all of that stuff. Oh, the other thing you need to make sure that you've got, anybody with pets, is some
Mm.
food and, a dish. And when you think of water, think of your dog, right?
Yeah,
So it's not just you, right? It's the other critter in your house.
yeah. I do have extra bowls, leashes,
Good.
and poop bags,
Mm-hmm.
in the car. um, and the ones that I take with me every time I leave the house. But I have a little box in the back of the car
Mm-hmm.
with that stuff in it as well. So I have a little bit of stuff for him as well, just in case I need it. Food is easy because it's in a bag by the door, not far from the door. So as I walk out, I can pick it up and
That's
go
great.
just go right with it.
That's great.
So I
Your
have.
dog is probably happy that you're thinking of him.
Oh, well, yeah, he's spoiled. I think I put his stuff together more before I even did mine. And that still happens every day too.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. So I think that's kind of a good summary and maybe a good place for us to stop. But I think
Yeah.
preparedness is really important. And then we'll talk more about a few other things.
Okay. On that note, we've come to the end of our first segment. We're talking today with Regina Phelps, and we will be right back.